All right. Hello, everyone. We're on week 8 or something like that of the off season. I don't know. I stopped counting, but it's been a pretty busy off season. I've got 4 pretty well drawn logo. I'm pretty proud of 3 of these. This one, my fiance drew, so I cannot take credit for it. It looks better than what I did last week. But yeah, let's jump right into it. G2, I kept that from last week because thankfully I had the mind to not erase that before we didn't hear any news. But unfortunately, I won't be drawing the G2 logo probably ever again this offseason after this week because they are expected to drop their roster 100%. They're not anticipated to return in 2025 season. There's a lot of thoughts that go along with this. Losing a legacy org like G2, who's been in the scene since like 2016 or 2017, is a pretty good indication of where we are, and that's not in a great place. So we have a lot as an esport to do to rebuild to a more sustainable spot, and I hope the necessary things are done in order to make that happen. That's a whole nother discussion though. So I'll probably talk about that in another video. If you want a lot of information about that, go visit Lawler's channel. He's got a couple of good videos talking about org sustainability and the general thinking behind, why is G2 doing this, etc. Why are orgs upset? I don't have the most qualifications to speak on that, and I'm trying to cover the moves, but I'm already off topic, and it's been less than a minute probably. So in terms of the roster moves that we're seeing from G2, there was a rumor earlier this week that Atomic was scrimming with LJ and Firstkiller. This sent a lot of people into a panic because it's like, okay, is G2 actually splitting up? This has been confirmed since that it's only for FIFA E, which is another confusing thing that we don't know what the heck is happening for. According to Achilleas, the deadline for FIFA E was this week in terms of which teams, like submitting which teams were representing which nation. The deadline for that was this week, and we weren't even sure if if the USA had actually contacted anyone for that. Very frustrating, but supposedly this Atomic LJ Firstkiller scrims were for FIFA E. They're not running with the G2 roster because I believe Beastmode is not attending. I think along with this, Achilleas followed up saying that LJ and Firstkiller did consider Atomic for their roster, but Atomic never considered them. So G2, or ex-G2 now, are determined to stick together. And seems like they found the org to do that. I don't have them drawn on here, but this is probably the biggest news of this week, is that NRG is shifting their focus away from LJ and Firstkiller and on to signing the ex-G2 roster. There's a good chance this goes through. NRG is working hard to make it happen. And so next year you will probably see NRG Daniel, NRG Beastmode, NRG Atomic, NRG Satthew. Not only does seeing a roster completely shift from being under the G2 banner to an NRG banner feel exceptionally weird, given how prolific both of those teams are in the RLEsports space. This got us screwed with LJ Firstkiller as well. So a week ago, LJ and Firstkiller, it was rumored that they were going to be coached by Sadjunior. To be honest, this was probably their plan from the beginning. LJ and Sadjunior have a good career working together, and I thought that should always be the case. They seemingly agreed. However, they were deciding on who their third player was, and they have come to the decision that that's going to be Chronic. A lot of people are questioning this move as it's like bringing 2/3 of GenG together. A lot of people didn't think that Firstkiller and Chronic meshed too well, especially towards the end of the season. There was the entire GenG fall apart. And my 2 cents on this is that LJ and Chronic have been friends for a long time. They're like pretty consistent twos partners. And if LJ is the person who's has more decision weight when it comes to these things, along with Sadjunior, it doesn't surprise me that they've gone with Chronic. I think this could still work. I'm surprised that there's a large amount of people saying, oh, I don't think this is going to work, combining Firstkiller and Chronic again, when so much of the ire for what was going wrong with the GenG roster also went towards Chrome. It just feels like a lot of people are just being doomer about this squad for reasons, and just there's no positivity anymore, and it's bothering me because I actually like this squad a lot. Completely biased opinion, obviously. Boom. There's going to be bias, but they're looking for a new organization to represent, and yeah, we'll have to see where they end up because it's probably not going to be G2. Hopefully it's a big org to rep. I don't think it'll be Space Station. For the record, I think Space Station's locked into Snowman at this point, and they don't want to be spending the big bucks for a championship winning roster just out the gate, especially with how this scene is right now. But yeah, before I get back into North America and talk about some of those things, shift over to Europe real quickly. Ninja Pajamas. As I said, my fiance drew this. She did a wonderful job. But in terms of the roster, Itachi and Oski, they're keeping that third spot open. And so here we go with the whole Alpha 54 train again. There's two main considerations for that third spot. Alpha 54 is still one of them, but they are not locked with him. They're also trying out Nass. So one of the theories, or one of the first tryouts that the LJ Firstkiller duo did was Nass. That obviously isn't happening anymore. Nass is still on the table. He's had a couple options. I think his biggest two options are either this Itachi Oski duo or Stizzy and apparently Jack on Dignitas. It wouldn't surprise me if Itachi and Oski want to go with Nass. And if they do, we're back to me saying repeatedly that Alpha 54 is under contract with Vitality until 2025. Ninja Pajamas, at this point, is his best bet of playing next season. Because if he doesn't join this Alpha or Itachi and Oski roster, I have a hard time seeing another org coming in and being willing to pick him up. Granted, I said that before Ninja Pajamas said that they were interested. So who knows what could happen. But this is always going to be a looming cloud until he gets signed and secured and announced by an organization for Alpha 54. Back into North America, not really the super teams we're talking about anymore. GenG officially have dropped their roster, and there's a few things to go along with this. They are in talks with Retals Magic Cheese. So last week I was talking about how Retals Magic Cheese was no longer going to be Retals Magic Cheese and how they were going to be Retals Magic Chronic. That was under the stipulation that LJ and Firstkiller did not choose Chronic as their third. They have chosen Chronic as their third, so I need to stop doing that. I'm sorry. They have chosen Chronic as their third, so Chronic could not team with Retals and Majicbear. And now Retals and Majicbear have said, all right, Cheese, you're back. Welcome to the team. This gives me... There's a couple instances where this has happened. Most notably when Rise decided to transfer to North America and then decided on the transfer, like the last day of the transfer window, that he wasn't. That created a lot of teams going back to the direction that they went. Notably, version 1 retained Calm instead of dropping him, and they ended up making a move the next transfer window anyways that was irrespective of Calm. And then actually with this core as well, Retals and AJ were going to drop Majicbear for Calm. Didn't, kept Majicbear. Didn't go great at the start. They got 2 last place in regionals and then got top 4, stuck together again, and now Retals and Majicbear are still teaming. So a lot of people could view that as an example of what could happen. A lot of people could also view Space Station 2023 as an example, when LJ and Hoxter were like, ooh, we want to try to get Justin. And then Justin said, I'm going to join Shopify Rebellion. And then LJ and Hoxter were like, all right, Arsenal, you're back. And Arsenal was like, nah, I'm not. So TBD, but it does sound like, based on what everyone's saying on Twitter, Cheese is excited to rejoin the squad and keep playing with them. So wouldn't be surprised to see Retals Magic Cheese as Retals Magic Cheese next year. They are in talks with GenG. They're in talks with multiple organizations. Achilleas has said there are 3 organizations, one of them being GenG, one of them being Pioneers, but Achilleas did seem to re-hint at Retals Magic Cheese to GenG a little bit more this week. So be keeping an eye on that. I think that's their most likely landing spot at this point. In terms of the GenG organization, the CEO, Arnold, has discussed finances and the state of the scene on Twitter a decent amount. He put out a statement after G2 CEO put out a statement. And essentially, the org decals are not enough to sustain a roster for an entire year. I think G2 was saying how org decals only made up 20% of their team's budget. Arnold was saying how they may only make up 10%. Truthfully, that's not enough. I don't think adding a second decal and a goal explosion is going to make that number shoot up too much. It'll make it shoot up a decent amount, but not like, oh yeah, we're suddenly sustainable. So a lot needs to be done. Obviously, there's going to be some money from sponsors. GenG has a decent amount of sponsors. You know, Mobile One being the title partner for GenG. G2 obviously had one. I'd say Mobile One is probably a more stable title partner than Stride is. But one thing that Arnold has mentioned is that there are going to be mandatory decal requirements for their team next year. So it's going to be weaved into GenG's contract that they will be wearing the organization's decals when they play on the pitch for the RLCS. There's been long-winded discussions about should this be required just from a client side so that we can tell who's on which team a little bit better. Personally, I'm for it, but I'm also of the opinion that it'd be really cool if we got 3 decals per year per team and they were tailored to each individual player. I think that could act as a jersey. It would give more opportunities for orgs to, put out more stuff that you can buy and more opportunities for the customer to actually buy more decals. So I'd love to see 3 decals per team, and especially if orgs were willing to be like, okay, Frosty, I'm biased, so I'm going to list Space Station, right? Frosty, this is what your decal is going to look like. Scribbles, this is what your decal is going to look like. And Reveal, this is what your decal is going to look like. And kind of run with that so that they each have a little bit of a personalized decal. And if there's a mid-season roster change, maybe be able to accommodate that. And then for the next season, when you have possibly an entirely different team, especially with how North America has gone, you have 3 more decals. That there are going to be people that are willing to buy all 3 decals to support the organization that they're cheering for, especially if it is a big title like G2, like GenG, like NRG, like SSG. Now that I'm done ranting about that, because I could go on for hours. I said I wasn't going to draw this logo in week 1, but here we are. M80. Just because 2 of these players are from M80 and I have to cover it. Achilleas and Oli form as a duo. This was announced 6 or 7 days ago at this point. And then Achilleas put out a scrim tryouts block and did not have Achilleas and Oli together. So I'm a little bit confused on if they are still a duo. As of a week ago, they were open to being in Europe, North America, or MENA. So, obviously being open to Europe, they're both Europeans. Being open in North America, not too much of a surprise. A lot of opportunities there. Open to MENA is actually crazy. That would be a very surprising move. But we also know that GenG Esports, who is a MENA organization, are looking to build a super team down there, including potentially importing talent. They are being coached by Nick, who was the coach of M80 last season. Could that happen? Maybe. Could GenG go a different direction? Not sure. Just throwing that out there because multiple pieces and the fact that these guys are open to going to MENA is definitely a new thing when it comes to this team. In terms of who they've been scrimming with, irrespective of each other, Achilleas had a scrim in North America with Hawkster and Evo. I believe that's the only time I really saw him on that sheet. And then Oli had a scrim with Joyo and Archie. So Joyo and Archie still trying their options. They have scrimmed with Oli, Rise, and Atomic at this point. I think they'll probably go with Rise, but it's still very early to tell. We'll have to see. But yeah, supposedly these 2 are a duo, but they're also scrimming with other people. I don't know. I'm sure we'll find out more very soon. And the last bit of news about M80 is in a surprising move. AJ has retired from the RLCS. He's been playing since, or at least in the RLCS since season 7. He came up with, maybe since season 6. I can't remember exactly. It might have been since season 6. He was on FlyQuest, possibly. He was definitely on Rogue. He attended his first World Championship in season 7 for sure. When he was on Rogue, hit a cool flip reset. Was known as a mechanical player. Teamed with Firstkiller on FaZe. Went through Optic, M80 last season. So, long-winded player. And this is definitely a surprising retirement, as earlier in this offseason, he actually got hand injections to stop him from sweating. And he was excited about how that could potentially help him in the RLCS. So, I don't think this has been coming for a long time. I think it's a more recent development. He's not going to disappear from the community, according to him. He still wants to be around, streaming, stuff like that. So, but yeah, definitely a surprising move. And personally, I thought that AJ stock was getting viewed as the lowest heading out of that M80 situation, because Achilleas had the example of going with Chiefs to a top 8 at EWC, and then Nass got top 4 at EWC with G2. And so a lot of people were high on both of those players. And because of that, AJ was kind of getting left behind as, not necessarily M80 was his fault, but he was the one who wasn't putting himself back up into the spotlight immediately. I still think he was good enough to get on a very solid team, and he was still trying out with multiple teams. But yeah, guess that's it for AJ's career. Personally, thought he had a great one. Didn't win, championship titles or anything, but very solid piece. Made a lot of lands. Good talent. So sad to see him go, but won't be surprised if he continues streaming and doing some content. So that being said, I've rambled on for far too long. It's been too long. It's too early in the morning. So yeah, that's all I got. I will, hopefully actually put that midweek video that I was talking about last week out this week. My bad. And I will definitely for sure catch you all next Sunday with another iteration of the whiteboard.